Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session of D-Talks or Disruptive Literacy Talks. I'm your host, Mashood. We Just yesterday we have completed almost 100 talks of where we have had leaders, change makers, policymakers, and practitioners from around the world to speak on how we can help achieve the goals of SDG 4 of universal foundation literacy and numeracy for all children, youth, and for a substantial portion of our adults as well. And as we enter like the next 100 talks of detox, we are very happy to welcome a very special guest who is with her team working on has developed certain amazing initiatives for education, very interactive and very interesting. And we are hoping to learn more about this initiative, which is being implemented in Pakistan. Also looking at improving learning outcomes, foundational skills of children as well. So today we like to welcome Miss Sabina Abbasi. She is the head of department in the content production vertical of the Orenda project. She has also been appreciated as a wise emerging leader in the World Innovation Summit for Education, the WISE conference. And she is also a visiting faculty at the Bahariya University in Pakistan and has a background in economics and policy from the UK as well. Sabina, it's an absolute honor for us to have you here today on Detox. Thank you so much for finding time and joining us here today. Uh, yeah, yes, Sabina. Thank you so much for joining us. And for all our audience members, we'd like to share that Sabina has a wonderful presentation for all of us, where she would be taking us through the work which Orenda has been doing, and we'll follow it up with certain question answer discussions, and we would encourage everyone to also share their thoughts and questions as well on the chat. So, Sabina, over to you. Uh, Sabina, hi. Can you hear me?
Right. Thank you so much for the great introduction. My name is Sabina, and I wanted to share a few stories. As a child, I remember just hopping onto my mom's car with her friends, and we would randomly visit different areas, different slum areas in rural communities. And this one time, we were helping this young lady get married. We were collecting things for her, danced at her wedding, and then at one point, we were at an orphanage. We collected lots of food for them and books so that they could read. So that's how I actually grew up. And then I don't know how I ended up in a business school. It didn't really resonated with me, and but as they say that everything that you experience, there's always a meaning behind it, and it always comes back to you later in life. So anyways, after that, I was just scrolling through Facebook one time, and I saw one of my friends shared something about Teach for Pakistan, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting project, and I ended up there, and that's where I found out that I'm truly passionate about education. How do you find out that when you can't sleep at night thinking about the work that you're doing, thinking about how you can make it better? So that was a true calling for me, and there are so many wonderful stories of so many kids that I was lucky enough to be interacting with. Because this is about foundational literacy, I remember I was tasked with teaching language to my students, and these were grade 6 students, and they could hardly knew anything other than alphabets. If you look at the curriculum, it mostly focuses on teaching grammar. However, in classroom, so we ended up what we did was we ended up creating a library which was out of at least one line during break time, and that created wonders. Within 6 months, they started reading, they started understanding the text. So it really showed that, for me, I think that was one of the biggest experiences which I still cherish, because that really showed that if you teach a child to read and you develop love for reading, then I think that kid becomes an independent learner. So that was
Sorry to interrupt, Sabina. Your voice is breaking a lot. Maybe we can try just reconnecting once more. We're not able to hear the voice clearly.
is
Yes.
right. So I was just introducing the work of Talimabad. We started off with a nationwide campaign where we just asked parents and students, why education? Why is it important to learn, to study? And almost 85% of the people, they know the value of education.
Sabina, I'm sorry, your voice is again not audible. We would request you to maybe try reconnecting once, and like, because the your voice is not audible at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. This is much better. Yes, please.
Right. Sorry for that. Um, so that really shows that there is still a lot of tech issues, which is one of the barriers. However, we still have to work on it continuously, and so can we move on to the next slide?
Sabine, I'm sorry again. We're not able to hear you. One possibility could be to maybe try switching off the camera to maybe that might improve the sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. So, right, I'll just switch off my camera. Hopefully, that will solve some of the issues.
Yes,
Can
better.
you move on to the next slide, please? Right. So just quickly, the education system has a lot of issues. There are 22.5 million kids who are not going to school, 68% do not transition, and then 43% are kids who, of fifth graders, who cannot do a simple division. So it is the system is already crippled, and the pandemic really further worsened the education outcomes. So next slide. Technology does offer a lot of opportunity. There are 100 million predicted smartphone users in Pakistan. It's 96 million people who actually use 3G and 4G. So smartphone penetration is quite high, and we thought of leveraging this opportunity. So in the next slide, what we've done is we've created a learning app. So it's literally a school in your pocket. So it's called Talimabad Learning App. It can be accessed through Android smartphones. Um, we've also because of COVID, government swiftly responded to that, and we ended up with a very dedicated platform. It's called Teleschool, which is an national channel. Around 40 million children have access to television. That's why the government actually took this initiative, and they gathered all the edtech players, and the reach went above 8 million for our content alone. So in the next slide, in Taliabad is basically, now you can see it, and through in television channels. We've partnered with radio, and it's also available in through smartphones. And it's there's also a low cost smartphone. We've created the iOS app so that it's easily accessible by people who don't have access to expensive phones. So and the next slide, so here we've explained the model that we use. Uh, Initially, I explained that the entire idea behind Talimabad was to create content which is engaging for kids. The kid doesn't have to ask, why am I going to school? Uh, the kid doesn't have to say, why am I studying this? So we try to, whenever we're creating content, we try to make it extremely engaging. We use local context, we use examples that kids are familiar with. So for example, in this one, people love watching cricket, and we teach division through that. And there are multiple examples that you can find in the content. So in the next slide, what we've done is that we use a combination of story components and teaching components. So the story is essentially the application of the concept, but however, we have to make sure that it's combined with the teaching component as well. According to data, the engagement is high during story components, but learning is relatively low. But in the teaching component, it takes a more structured approach. It takes a more abstract approach, but however, the engagement becomes slightly lower. So we use a combination of both methods so that we make sure that both learning and engagement is combined. It's a fine balance that you have to achieve, and sometimes it actually gets very tricky. So in the next slide, basically, we focus on the core subjects, which are English, Urdu, maths, and science. Apart from that, we've also created a dedicated subject for character development. Over here, we strongly believe that education devoid of moral and ethical values, it's very crippled, and we focus a lot on that. Even within the animated videos, we make sure that these values are included. So because I think that we in schools we mostly target students and we think they're one dimensional where they just have to absorb the concepts, but we don't focus on the other aspects of a child, which like emotional development, personal development. So we focus a lot on that as well. The videos are also combined with assessments. So if a child watches one video, he has to attempt a very quick assessment just to see that if he has understood it as well. And assessments also work as a learning aid for students. So in the next slide, I've explained one approach, which is through app, which directly targets customers. There are more than 10 million users of our content, but we also do very targeted, focused interventions. So we picked two districts of Pakistan, which had the lowest literacy rates, and we introduced tablets, and we gave basically we installed the entire content and we gave these tablets to girls who had completed primary and were moving to secondary. So what we because as I said previously that transition from primary to secondary is very low. So what we witnessed was that there was a 70% reduction in dropout rate, 31% performance increased in final exams, and which also led to some interest from government officials to actually scale the project. I personally went to these areas. I talked to the parents, I talked to the students, and what I found was that it's not that they weren't interested in studying or the parents weren't willing to send their kids. It was just that there wasn't good quality education available over there. And when the students had it, they actually insisted, and they forced their parents to send them to school, and they ended up winning. So the learning was that your supply side need to be strong. The demand is already there. So in the next slide, our content is as because we believe that you need to be very structured in your approach, and it needs to be uh, a mainstream thing. We actually believe that you can bring change by targeting the mainstream education sector. That's why whatever we create, we pick up student learning outcomes from the national curriculum. We make sure that it's um, any school can actually use the content, or even if a kid does it from home, he is equipped with all the essential knowledge and skills to master the grade level that are there. So we in the next slide, recently after COVID, we started working with schools. Before that, we were directly targeting the customers. Uh, and why we targeted schools? Because we found out that because of COVID, there were more than 300,000 schools which closed because they couldn't actually, they weren't able to adapt. And they were lacking in the technology part of it, they couldn't leverage it. So, in the next slide, I've actually shown the products that we offer to schools. So there's a learning management system where you basically address all the management related and the administrative tasks. There are very targeted lesson plans, which are basically scripts for teachers. So teachers in low resource schools from all over the country, they unfortunately are underqualified, they're underpaid. So what we do is we brought together a group of experts who actually create these scripts for teachers, which they just have to make sure that they do it. They use these scripts in their classrooms, and our video content is also embedded in these lesson plans. So the main instruction is through the video, and then it's combined with activities and workbooks uh, to enhance the learning. And third is that we've created in-house storybooks and workbooks as a learning aid for these kids. The storybooks that's a part of our literacy program, they're very targeted, and they progress from level 1 to level 5. And at the end of the day, the target is to improve the reading and writing part. In the next slide, basically this is a small shot from a Taliabad school where kids are actually learning about constellations through an activity, through a very hands-on activity, and it's just one of the best things about being in the school is that kids are now actually having a lot of fun while learning. And one of the parents actually was concerned that now my kid happily wakes up in the morning and wants to rush to schools. So that part really motivates us that maybe there's something we're doing right. So lastly, in the last slide, our aim is to like I've been repeatedly saying, uh, our aim is to make sure that we want to make learning a constant part of a child's life, and something that a kid doesn't run away with, something that he or she resonates with, something he or she falls in love with. So that's why we've used all sorts of mediums. For example, at 7 a.m. when the kid is getting ready, their Talimabat animated videos playing on the television in the school. He's learning and practicing, and then goes home again, watches the same videos, which really reinforces your concept, and then practices on the Talimabad app. So that's the vision that we see. So I think I've tried to explain the motivation behind what we do at the company. If you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Sabina, for really taking us through the work of your, like wonderful team and organization, which is, like really making learning accessible for the every last child, and in such an interesting and innovative way. So it's truly amazing the work which you and your team are doing here. You talked about how there are many children are still not having the foundational skills in literacy and numeracy, and because of pandemic, because of school closures, we've had children not being able to kind of have direct engagement with teachers for a significant period of time. So what would your assessment be about how serious the digital divide is in Pakistan, and how has the pandemic impacted this digital divide?
Right. So, as I already explained, that the divide was already there. I think the pandemic really highlighted it. It really showed everyone how, because of that digital divide, as I said, that 300,000 schools were actually closed down, and then but the government actually resorted, they started exploring different avenues, and they thought that broadcast was one of the areas through which we can reach out the audience. But and then after that, the smartphone penetration was also it rised quite a lot. Um, and currently there are over 100 million smartphone users. The edtech players were already there in Pakistan way before the pandemic hit, but I think people weren't readily accepting it. Even the government wasn't. But the pandemic actually forced everyone to adapt towards technology. There's still a long way to go, but I think it's high time that we all shift towards that. The reason is, in developing countries already the education system was quite broken, right? And technology is one area through which we can actually somehow at least fix the basics. So that's why I think, if even if there wasn't any pandemic, it's very important for people to adapt to technology.
Right. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. We see, many initiatives being taken by your organization, the Talimabad app, and it's truly innovative. That when it's trying to address, this challenge of lack of interest, or with respect to learning, right? Using real life examples, connecting with children, and having these oscillations of story and learning, etc. So it's truly very interesting. What in your interventions is the role of the people around the students, the teachers, parents, community? How have What role do you see they have in facilitating technology based learning?
So specifically, the teachers and parents and the community, I think, like I said before, that we do, initially our target was we were directly targeting the customers. And for teachers right now, when we are going to the schools, it's especially in the grow resource schools, it's a challenge for them to actually adapt to the technology, because they're not used to it. They're used to teaching in a certain way. uh, it's not to say they're not open towards it. It's just that it's a bit of a challenge for them, because some of them are also not very comfortable with technology. So our first task is to actually make sure that they learn the basics of technology and then move on to using other digital products. Parents, again, they also need to change their mindset, because I think, sometimes we also hear from parents that they think that their kid is only watching cartoons and having fun and then coming back home. But they don't realize that within those cartoons, they're actually learning. That was the model that we adapted, that if kids enjoy watching cartoons, let's teach them through that. So it will take some time for the entire community to change their mindset. They are open towards it, but it will take some more time to be be comfortable with it, actually.
Right. And we are seeing, like you mentioned, about a lot of digital and broadcast approaches to delivering content are being used. So it seems that the role of parents has become even more important in the child's learning. What is your assessment of, are have the communities that you're working with? How are parents kind of getting, what challenges are they facing with respect to supporting their children's learning at home, and any success stories of parents actually kind of helping, assisting foundational learning at home for children?
So yes, there is a struggle, and especially there are many households who only have one smartphone and everybody has to share it. When the schools closed, there were a lot of people who had to go back to their communities where the internet facility wasn't available. So they had to actually travel quite a few distance to access these the online classrooms, right? So, and there are many stories where parents and communities actually helped in be, for example, I was
Sabina, sorry to interrupt again. Your voice is breaking again. I think it was slightly better without the camera. Do you want to try that once again?
okay, right. So I hope it's better now.
Yes, yes, better.
Right. So basically, like I was just saying that it is a struggle for parents as well, especially in a lot of communities. In a lot of families, there's only one smartphone that the entire family shares. And then when the schools closed, kids had to move back to their hometowns, and where in many of these places the internet facility wasn't available. So, but there are a lot of success stories as well, where parents actually went out of their way and communities went out of their way to provide spaces to these kids so that they can actually access the online learning solutions. So we have a lot of parents in our school who were there were actually many kids who actually used to watch content on TV or through app, and when they found out that there's a Taliban school in their neighborhood, they were just they couldn't wait to go there, and the parents were actually extremely happy to find that out. um, so yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a two-way street. The school and parents and community, all of them have to work together. There are stories like learning buddies were created within the communities where if one family has the smartphone, the teacher would send worksheets or the homework there, and that kid was responsible for another kid who doesn't have a smartphone, and he has to make sure that his buddy actually has access to all of that material.
That's wonderful to learn that that children and community members are taking leadership roles and volunteering, taking care of each other's learning needs as well. The buddy system which you mentioned. So it's thanks for sharing that. Um, with regards to foundational literacy in numeracy, we also have a question from one audience member, which Nasreen ji is saying, how can we make assessments in this app? So just to add to her question, in when we talk about literacy, like it's like this huge spectrum of is a child does the child have oral fluency? Do they have the decoding reading skills? Are they reading fluently? And then they move to writing. So the whole LSRW kind of an approach. What is your experience with respect to where are children kind of lagging behind with respect to literacy? And which specific part is the Talimabad app, focusing on, and what has been the learnings of specifically working on literacy? Your thoughts?
Right. So, about the assessments, we do provide assessments in the app. So, when you watch a video, it's followed by a mini quiz. So, the assessments are already there. You don't have to make it. And for early years, it's completely gamified. So, a kid thinks he's playing a game, but that's actually an assessment. Secondly, about foundational literacy and numeracy, we focused on a lot on early year curriculum where we specifically focus on language development and numeracy. Uh, we've taken this approach. Initially, I think when you have to be familiar with the words and then their sounds. So we start with phonics and then blends, and then we continue like that. That's focusing on word builder, right? And then you develop sentence through focus grammar techniques. But on this side, we also focus a lot on reading. So we've divided language into different components: reading, speaking, listening, writing, and then grammar is uh, through taught through videos. For reading, we've specifically developed 200 readers in both English and Urdu, and we've embedded the student learning outcomes within those readers. There are also specific grammar concepts added in the readers, and they progress from level 1 to level 5. There we've also added voiceovers in those readers, so that if a child to help them with the pronunciations of the word as well. Like I said, that usually the schools that we focus on, they are low resource schools. Teachers are underqualified, their own concepts are not that clear. So we first focus on developing their concepts and teaching them how do you teach a language to kids. So that's how we gradually develop the basic skills of students. And so far, the results are actually great. I remember I went to this school in Rajanpur back in 2020. And this was again a district where the literacy was the lowest. And so when there was a progression of, because this kid was in grade 6 and her foundation wasn't clear. So if she was exposed to grade 6 content, for example, I showed her a video on adjectives. And then I asked her questions. She couldn't really answer it. But when I showed her the video from grade 1, 2, 3, and then moved on to 5 and 6, then her concepts started building up, and she could easily answer all the questions related to that concept. So I think uh, the app provides that opportunity to actually go back to the basics, revise, or to understand the basic concepts, and then move on to the next ones. And it's actually this doesn't require you an entire year to master a grade. So you can do it in 2-3 months, depending on the pace that you're following.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Sabina. And you talked about working extensively with teachers, and many teachers, and like both in Pakistan, India, and other countries as well. They themselves have been a product of a very traditional education system, and now they are themselves teachers, right? So. Do you feel that it is there is, I don't know, challenges with respect to teachers adopting new innovative methods for teaching when they themselves have not kind of gone through that kind of learning when they were students themselves, and now they've done well for themselves and become teachers? So do you get such questions from teachers that अरे नहीं हमने तो अपने टाइम पर अच्छे से पढ़ लिया था, then why not use the same old methods? How do you overcome that?
Yes, absolutely. We face that on a daily basis from teachers and parents, where we hear that कि चल रहा था सही से तो क्या जरूरत है, अभी उस वक्त भी तो आ रहा था, अब आप क्यों चेंज कर रहे हैं? So we hear that every day. And but with teachers, I think it's जब वो देख रहे होते हैं that through activities and these workbooks or storybooks, when they see that a kid is actually enjoying it and learning as well, वो उनके लिए भी बड़ी मोटिवेशन होती है for the teachers. And there were many incidents where these teachers actually reported कि जैसे one of the teachers said that पहले जब मैं पढ़ाती थी तब जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, अगले दिन जब मैं कॉन्सेप्ट के बारे में पूछती थी तो किड्स यूज्ड टू बी ब्लैंक, इनको आंसर नहीं आता था. लेकिन जब इस अप्रोच के साथ में पढ़ाती हूँ and I ask questions the next day, they're able to answer. And that's very motivating for the teacher as well. Teachers have also shared this with us कि this is a very innovative approach और हमने तो कभी ऐसे नहीं पढ़ा और ना ही ऐसे पढ़ाया है, but I wish I had a school जिसमें मैं ऐसे पढ़ती. So that's kind of motivating for us as well.
Right. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure it must be a very satisfying feeling to hear that from teachers कि काश मैं भी ऐसे इस तरीके के स्कूल में पढ़ी होती. In conclusion, Sabina, we also wanted your thoughts on is the the current context of blended learning, hybrid learning, which has taken a lot of traction and large scale adoption across the world now. Do you think that this is more like a temporary thing, or do you think, in your assessment, this is here to stay for the long run?
So, like I said previously as well, that even before the pandemic, there were edtech organizations all across the world. And the most famous was Khan Academy. I think that was a great model. And the reason why we need it despite the pandemic is because unfortunately we didn't have a perfect education system, especially in developing countries. There were a lot of issues and challenges. There are many kids who are out of school all across the world. Even when they are in schools, the learning levels are not up to the mark. And secondly, I really believe that in a lot of uh, in many parts of the world, education is treated as one dimensional aspect, that हमने बस वो technical skills सिखाने हैं, बस theories दिमाग में डालनी है, science और maths पे focus होता है ज़्यादा. but uh, but we don't focus on the character development or the emotional development of a child. And you can see that अब जो है there are many teenagers who are depressed, and they're seeking counseling. And I feel like कि हमें school में it's our responsibility as educators to teach them how to deal with all of these things. So ये सारी चीज़ें भी आप ब्लेंडेड लर्निंग, सॉरी थोड़ा सा ऑफ टॉपिक चला गया था, बट ब्लेंडेड लर्निंग में यू गेट सो मेनी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़. आप टीचर का काम बहुत ज़्यादा, बिकॉज ट्रेडिशनली टीचर इज़ एक्सट्रीमली ओवरबर्डन विद सो मेनी थिंग्स. आई थिंक आप उसका काम बहुत ज़्यादा आसान कर सकते हैं थ्रू टेक्नोलॉजी. यू कैन स्केल इट अप, यू कैन रीच सो मेनी पीपल थ्रू टेक्नोलॉजी. आई डोंट थिंक इन फ्यूचर विल इवन रिलाई ऑन physical infrastructure because it's very expensive. It's आप quality उसमें monitor करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. So I kind of feel that we all need to really work on technology. And I think COVID, thanks to COVID, everybody now was forced to actually, adapt these methodologies, which they should have done way before the pandemic. So I feel like it will, the smart thing will be to stick to it. And I believe that ये रहेगा आगे भी.
Right. Thank you, Sabina, for really helping us learn more about the wonderful work which you guys are doing with Orenda. And I think some things which you have, especially in the conclusion, which you said that it's like the foundational skills and content knowledge. I mean, all these things are important, but it's also important to kind of integrate socio-emotional learning skills, and the pandemic has more than anything told us that the resilience among children is very important to to succeed in life. So thank you once again for giving us your time, for sharing the experiences and successes and learnings of your organization. And we wish you the very best, and in your continued growth and success. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And again, sorry for the bad internet connection. But this was wonderful. I think I had a wonderful time sharing the experience and talking to you.
Thank you. It was absolutely